Hi guys, thank you very much for tuning in. My name's Matt. I'm talking to you from Faradite, obviously from home. I'm here with Faradite Managing Director Chris Turner as well. Thank you for joining us at this interactive week for EI Live. We have got some really interesting things we want to go through with you today, so thank you for tuning in. Just want to point out at this stage, there is a chat box on the side of your webinar page. If you do have any questions throughout the presentation, feel free just to type them in there, hit send. We'll either get to them at the end of the presentation or we'll get back to you afterwards on email. But without further ado, I'm going to get started into a little look at what we've got planned in this presentation today. As I mentioned, we've got some existing products we want to have a look at. So we're going to go over the Motion Sensor 360 range. A lot of you guys will be using that and will be very comfortable with how our Motion Sensor 360 range is working. I'm then going to hand over to Chris, who's going to give you an introduction into our next generation of tap switches. We've got some really exciting new features that we are looking forward to showing on our next generation of tap switches. But I won't say too much. I'll leave that to Chris later on. We'll then give you a bit more of an insight into the future roadmap. So moving on after the next generation of tap switches, we'll give you a little insight into what we've got coming up in the future after the second generation of tap switches. So firstly, who are we? We are Faradite. I'm sure some of you will have heard of us and know who me and Chris are, but we are Faradite. We are a UK-based manufacturing company of smart home accessories. So at the moment, we manufacture products such as motion sensors and light switches, but in the future, that's something we'll obviously be looking to expand as we move into different areas and move into different technologies. We currently export to over 40 countries worldwide. So we have a lot of customers around Europe, Australia, America, all around the world. We're currently exporting, as I say, to over 40 countries worldwide. And we aim to support all the major control systems. So a lot of you guys who are using Loxon, Control4, Rayco, Crestron, Lutron, whatever the system may be, you guys are probably using our sensors already, I hope you are, but the aim is to have our products available for all the different control systems out there. And we're very proud to be a CEDIA trade supply member. I'm sure a lot of you guys know the great work CEDIA do. We ourselves are very happy to be a CEDIA trade supply member, and we're really proud of that. So I want to introduce you now to the Motion Sensor 360 range. As I said, some of you guys are hopefully using this already. If not, it's a really, really popular sensor for lots of different applications around the professionally installed smart home. First thing I want to point out with this guy, he's very, very small. Our motion sensor is just 49 millimeters diameter when installed on the ceiling, and they protrude down from the ceiling just under 4 millimeters. So they are very, very, very small. Can't stress that enough. We have actually on our social medias before shown that they can be installed on a business card. So they are super small, super discrete sensors that provide a really sensitive and accurate motion sensing for your smart home. We've kept the connections on the back really simple. So for us, simplicity means reliability. So on the back of the sensors, there's a volt-free or dry contact or potential-free connection, however you want to refer to it, it's the same thing. And it can be powered from anything from 5 volts to 35 volts DC. So it's widely compatible with many different control systems, and the connections on the back are super simple, meaning that it's a really reliable sensor. Any control system that has a contact closure input device or any kind of digital input device can be used with our volt-free motion sensors here. It's available in white and black. So as you'd imagine, most of our sales are the white sensor, but we have the black sensor available for any of those darker interiors, such as media rooms or any interiors where there's a kind of dark aesthetic that you want to blend the motion sensor into more. And one of the things that you should hopefully notice with the black sensor is that it does actually have a black sensor dome as well. We haven't got a big unsightly white sensor dome inside of a black motion sensor. The dome itself is actually black as well, just to make sure it's as discreet as it possibly can be. So we've kept them both identical in form factor, but obviously black and a white available too. We also have an IP67 variety. So this is great for any of those more demanding areas of the home. So this can be used in porches, wet rooms, balconies, outdoor spaces. The IP67 rating makes it completely waterproof, good for pretty much any application around the home. Because it is designed for outdoor applications as well, we've added a sensitivity adjustment in the back. So as you're installing it, you can just dial up or down the sensitivity depending on the application to avoid as best we can any false triggers that we might occur if we've got motion sensors outside. Again, this is available as a black or a white sensor, so it can be used for many different interiors or any kind of aesthetic that you may need. Just waiting for my slides to catch up with me.
Slightly late.
Wide compatibility. So I've touched on this earlier. If you're an installer of Control4, Lutron, Crestron, Loxon, Rayco, Savan, or pretty much any other control system that has contact closure inputs available, then our motion sensors are pretty much going to be compatible. Like I say, 5 volts DC to 35 volts DC power, so they can be used with a broad range of control systems. So whatever you're using, if you're not sure, just get in touch and we'll be more than happy to answer any questions you have about the sensors and make sure you kind of fully understand them before moving ahead. Right, waiting for the next slide. Sorry, David, can you stop moving the mouse so it's just me in control, please? Thank you very much. Sorry about this, everyone. It's always fun.
Just have a small delay. There we go.
Just have a small delay. Great. We have a fire rated option available too. So if you are in the UK and you need a fire rated option for your motion sensor, we have an additional fire IDR which can be added as a variant for the motion sensor. Just bear in mind, if you are using the fire IDR, you're going to need a slightly larger cutout in the ceiling to accommodate that IDR. So for a standard sensor without fire IDR, it's a 35mm cutout. If you're using the fire IDR, just bear in mind that it needs a 40mm cutout just to house that fire IDR there. So I'm now going to hand over to Chris, who is the MD of Faradite. He is going to give you an introduction into the next range of, the next generation of tap switches. So over to you, Chris.
Brilliant. Thanks, Matt. Great introduction to our Motion Sensor 360 range. I think one of the other things to mention just on the Motion Sensor 360 or just generally about our products is, Matt's already mentioned the wide variety of control systems that they can work with. And we actually also publish blogs on our website on how to both wire the motion sensors or our range of motion sensors into various different control systems. But then in some instances, we also provide the programming videos. So, if you're, for example, a Luxon guy or Control4 guy, and you wanted to know exactly the steps in which you need to take to program the motion sensor and the different things that you can do inside, for example, Composer with the motion sensor, then there's some guides on our website. Just head to the blogs. But without further ado, what I'd like to talk to you today about is our next generation of tap switches. So what you see on the screen at the moment is our first generation tap switches. These are probably about 4 or 5 years old now. And our keypads, unlike our motion sensors, historically were designed to work exclusively with Luxon. This was mainly because they had a 24-volt digital output and also contained some technology from a company called Maxim called OneWire, which is what Luxon use for temperature sensing, for example. What was previously on the screen was a Tap 5, so that's a 5-button capacitive touch switch. We do that in various different metallic finishes. And what's on the screen at the moment is a Tap 1. So this is a 1-button capacitive switch that can be typically used just for your lighting, when the Tap 5 is used when you have periphery features around the outside. So that might be music control, blinds, etc. But what I wanted to talk to you today about, though, was our second generation, which we are in the process of launching very shortly. And this really builds on our first generation switches, but introduces some new features and also widens the compatibility of the tap range to a wider selection of control systems. So on this slide, we have a bit of an overview of some of these new features or existing features that have been enhanced in our second generation tap range. Instead of having a 24-volt digital output, we now have a series of dry contact outputs. So this means we can still support 24-volt digital outputs if you put 24 volts on one side of the relay, but we can also support a variety of other inputs, whether it be 12 volts, 5 volts, 35 volts, or ground reference inputs, for example, on the Lutron system. Our second generation switches will still have haptic feedback, and we've improved the haptic feedback engine, and it is now 10 times faster than our generation 1 switches. We've also, by popular demand, introduced a halo light, and you'll see a render of what that looks like on the next slide. I'm particularly super excited about that feature, and I personally spent an epic amount of time developing with our engineering team that particular feature. Matt can tell you all of the interesting stories behind that one. Fast wiring. So one of the things that we're really conscious of in our next generation range is that we wanted to make sure that it's compatible with a variety of different control systems. But we also wanted to ensure that it's really fast to install. And in the next couple of slides, I'll go on and talk a little bit more about what that means in reality. Back boxes. So our generation 1 keypads were for UK back boxes, and we had like an adapter for EU back boxes. Our second generation switches are going to work on both UK and European back boxes without any adapters. Our Gen 1 was 24 volts. Gen 2 is going to be able to be powered between 5 and 35 volts. So you've got a much wider range of voltages that it can be used with. And now the halo lights. So now on the back of the switch, so this is the bit that screws to the wall, there's going to be a really fine, crisp white light that gets emitted. And trust me, it looks beautiful. We've shown a front-on render here, not to give away everything, but when you actually see the real product, when it's available and see it from the side, you'll see it's this really crisp, beautiful line. And it's going to be adjustable by basically there's some buttons behind the keypad when you remove it off the wall that gives you the ability to adjust the brightness, turn it on and off, so sometimes you might want it off. So I mentioned in the features, one of the things which we wanted to improve was the speed in which you could wire our keypads. So here is the back of a second generation volt-free keypad. Okay, so I already mentioned this dry contact kind of approach, which is the same approach as we use with our motion sensors. And you'll see on this next slide that what we've done is we've developed a series of fly leads, and these fly leads are designed to work with various different manufacturers' dry contact pucks. So the one we see on this slide at the moment is for a Lutron system. So Lutron have a little dry contact puck. It can take up to 8 inputs. And our coupler has 6 outputs. Those of you who are astute might pick up on the fact that it has 6 outputs, and our current range of switches use 5. I think I'll leave it there. Hint. And this next slide shows you 2 other different control systems. So on the right hand side we have the Crestron IO puck, and we have developed the fly lead that will connect our volt-free back of a volt-free switch into the Crestron IO module. The same applies for Control 4 and a variety of other systems, of course also including the Luxon Nano DI tree. So now you can get a second generation volt-free keypad into the Luxon tree bus really, really fast. And this slide just shows a bit of an overview of all the things I spoke about before. So on the front, we have a range of different keypad fronts. In the middle, we have, on the left-hand side, our volt-free coupler. And on the right-hand side, we have other couplers. So we will be releasing other built-in control technologies to support our next generation keypad range. Behind the volt-free coupler, you can see the variety of different leads that you have to connect that volt-free coupler into the various different pucks, including a adapter that basically gives you exactly the same wiring output as our first generation switches for back compatibility, including everything that you would expect to be able to wire directly into a Luxon system. You also see at the back there UK and European back boxes, just to reinforce that fact. So, a glimpse into the future. So I've already mentioned that we has 6 outputs, and I'm sure you can guess what that might mean for the future in terms of fronts. But we would also be introducing next year some different finishes. So that's all I'm going to say at this stage. We are releasing new finishes for our keypads. There is some hot debate at the moment with exactly what that looks like. But at the beginning-ish of next year, we should get more clarity on that, and we'll be making some announcements. And to support that, we've been conscious for quite a few years now that we need a sales kit to support you guys specifying our keypads in projects. And for that reason, we've developed what we have on screen here, which is our sales kit. So it has a variety of different pockets where you can put different finishes. It kind of folds over, it's got magnetic closers on it. But I think the really cool thing about this is that in the middle, there's a powered dock for one of your keypads. So it's basically a powered coupler. That means that it will light up, so you'll get that nice halo light to show your clients. And also, if you put a working front into that middle location, then you can also show your client the haptic feedback and give them the full experience of what they might expect from a Faradite product. So again, that's going to be available through the web shop and will obviously be discounted to our current trade customers to give them all the tools they need to be able to specify our products. Now, some pretty big news. Some of you might already know this. We kind of tweaked it or showed it very subtly behind one wall at ISC at the beginning of this year, but we haven't actually made any real public announcements about this. We are going to be making, or pretty much have already made, the whole entire Faradite range. So that's the Motion Sensor 360 range and the tap range compatible with KNX. So you kind of saw on that architecture slide at the beginning, we're going to be developing other couplers. So we've got our volt-free coupler, which is our general purpose, pretty much be used with any control system via a puck or interface module, like digital input. But we're also going to have the KNX. Now, the really cool thing about the KNX coupler is it gives us so much more flexibility to bring in additional features, get access to additional sensor information. So you will see in our KNX switches a whole array of sensors that we've built into the next generation tap range. We won't be disclosing exactly today what they are, but I'm sure you can guess what type of environmental sensors one might build into a keypad. We've also developed the Motion Sensor 360 KNX. So along the same lines as the coupler, the tap coupler. This is also going to have obviously a motion sensor in it. It's going to have a light sensor in it, and it will have some other environmental sensors as well. Again, full details to be disclosed when we launch that product. And all of these products that we've spoken about today are going to be launched next year. The keypads will be launched towards the beginning of the year, followed by the KNX products later in the year. I know you're going to ask for an exact date, and unfortunately, I wish personally I could give you an exact date, but there's lots of things at play, as you can imagine, in today's market, and we're not quite in a position to give exact dates on that yet. So I think that's our last slide.
Thank you very much, everyone. Yeah. Thank you, Chris. That's really, really great. It's super exciting to see some of the new products that we've got, and I'm sure a lot of you guys will have questions. None of you guys have any questions in the webinar at the moment, but that's fine. If you do think of anything that you do want to ask in the coming days or weeks, then by all means, feel free to reach out and contact us. Our social media handle is @Faradite on pretty much all the social medias. If you do get any questions, you can find us anywhere on social media, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, whatever you like to use. So do please feel free to reach out and contact us if you have any questions. But I'm going to sign off and say thank you very much for giving up some of your lunchtime to watch our presentation. Thanks, guys, and we hope to see you soon.
Thanks very much, guys. Bye-bye.